Hey guys, Jared with Wisecrack here. We want to try out a new vlog format on this Wisecast channel, so now that Deadpool 2 is out, we figured there'd be no better time to try this out. So the movie's finally out, and if you liked the first one, you're gonna love the second one. It's got all the things that you come to expect from Deadpool. We got fourth wall breaks, pop culture references, self-criticism, cynicism, and moments of sincerity sprinkled in. So whereas the first one we had a romance that kind of bound it together, this time we have family as the overarching sincere theme. But something feels a little bit different about Deadpool 2. I was talking with some of the other writers, and although we laughed and all the things we loved about the first one we also appreciated about this one, something was different. We felt a little bit, dare I say, underwhelmed. So when I was going into Deadpool 2, I was personally expecting something that pushed the envelope as much as the first one did. But as I said, this kind of feels a little bit too much the same and not risky enough. But why? I mean, saying that a movie that has like a baby dick shot is not risky enough seems absurd. So what do I mean by this? So let's go back in time to when Deadpool 1 came out. It was such a novel, fresh experience. It was subversive. Back then in 2015, the cinema was more saturated with comic book movies than ever. Deadpool 1 was so novel and such a unique experience because when Deadpool would break the fourth wall, he pulled the curtain back and made fun of the methods that the writers, directors, and people who make these superhero movies employ to create the movies. They lampooned and subverted comic book movies by revealing and poking fun at the writer's toolbox. But now that Deadpool is kind of an established aesthetic in itself, fourth wall breaks aren't lampooning the writer's toolbox, they're a part of the writer's toolbox. So what I think the difference here is that back in 2015, Deadpool was reacting toward a very almost homogenous state of superhero movies, but now Deadpool is as much an established aesthetic, an established piece of intellectual property as any of these superhero movies. I mean, it is a billion-dollar piece of IP. I think the big thing going on here is that Deadpool is no longer a reaction to Marvel movies and other superhero movies that are relatively homogenous. It's actually an established aesthetic in itself. It's almost a victim of its own success. Deadpool was so wildly successful, so relevant to the culture at the time, that the aesthetic became ingrained in people's minds. People knew that Deadpool meant fourth wall breaks, it meant cynicism, it meant self-reflection. In Deadpool 2, when he breaks the fourth wall, they're no longer lampooning elements of the writer's toolbox. Breaking the fourth wall is now a part of the writer's toolbox. If trivializing the tools in the writer's toolbox itself becomes a tool in the writer's toolbox, then they're no longer actually lampooning the tools that writers use. The writers are, in a sense, no longer showing their real selves. So when Deadpool breaks the fourth wall in Deadpool 2, he's no longer pulling back the curtain. In Deadpool 1, whenever he'd break the fourth wall, he'd pull back the curtain and reveal the reality behind it. So let me give you an example. In the first Deadpool, there's a part where TJ Miller's character says, hey, you should go talk to that FBI agent looking guy sitting down because it might move the plot forward. Now, this is breaking the fourth wall because he's pointing out that in screenwriting, there's often a character, a mysterious character that pulls the protagonist into this foreign world, and thus the conflict starts and the hero's adventure is propelled. Now, by saying, hey, it might move the plot forward, he is breaking the fourth wall, revealing the truth that the writers are just trying to move the plot forward and that this FBI agent looking guy is just a plot device and that he's not really like a dynamic character. He's just there to move the protagonist forward. Now let me contrast that with a joke in Deadpool 2. In Deadpool 2, let's go to the part where we learn that Cable is only able to travel through time twice. And then if you remember, Wade turns to the camera and says, lazy writing. Because we are so hyper aware of the Deadpool aesthetic that we know that part of the rhythm of how Deadpool is written, where there are jokes every couple seconds, we know that fourth wall breaks are part of that arsenal in the writer's toolbox. It's not actually revealing the truth for them to say that it's lazy writing for them to have only allowed Cable to travel through time twice. The true lazy writing is the fact that he called it out as lazy writing, because breaking the fourth wall by turning to the camera and saying that's lazy writing, that is actually the lazy writing. So in Deadpool 2, because Deadpool is an established aesthetic, it is in a sense a new status quo. If Deadpool was about breaking down the status quo, by the time that Deadpool 2 comes out, it is its own new status quo. So when he looks to the camera and says lazy writing, he's not actually breaking the fourth wall. He's breaking an artificial fourth wall, or what I call the fifth wall. Now, how might this be different? So he would actually be revealing the truth of the writers if he looked at the camera and said, that's lazy writing, and so was that. And the so was that is him recognizing that the writers have to implement a meta joke ever so often, and they are lazily using what I consider to not be a terribly lazy writing aesthetic to shoe in a meta joke, because that's what Deadpool needs to be. So what I'm saying is, in order for him to make fun of the tools in the writer's toolbox, he'd have to not only break the fourth wall, but make fun of the fact that breaking the fourth wall is a cheap joke, thereby breaking what I'm calling the fifth wall. So what is it that this fifth wall is protecting? So when we think about the fourth wall is basically what separates the audience from a movie. When you break the fourth wall, you're reminding the audience that they are watching a movie. But because breaking the fourth wall is such an essential aesthetic element to Deadpool, the audience is always aware that he is going to remind them that they're watching a movie. The kind of suspension of disbelief doesn't work in as much, we're not disarmed by him reminding us that we're watching a movie, because that's part of the aesthetic. So the fifth wall protects that this is a movie built upon the notion of pointing out it's a movie. So if they make fun of themselves by saying, oh, look how cheap it is that we constantly point out that this is a movie and capitalize on that sense of disillusionment, then that would truly be subversive. That would be him breaking the fifth wall. So that would be him breaking the fifth wall. We all know there's going to be more Deadpool movies, so the question becomes, will Deadpool stay the same? Will he continue to just be the character that breaks the fourth wall, or will he have to develop with the zeitgeist? Will the aesthetic evolve to maintain its status as subversive? Because eventually breaking the fourth wall is going to get old, it's going to get tired, it's going to become the status quo. I think it actually kind of already is. Or the real question may be, can a multi-million-dollar movie franchise afford to be truly subversive? Hope you guys liked this, hope this was good food for thought, and as always, thanks for watching, guys. Peace.